All right, let's get right into it. Every once in a while, a new technology pops up that doesn't just promise to be a little bit better, it promises to change the whole game. Today, we're looking at a project called ENTIFY, and it's built around an idea that sounds almost impossible, a blockchain that doesn't even use the internet. And the claims they're making? Whoa, they are some of the boldest I have ever heard.
I mean, seriously, just look at this. This quote is pulled directly from their own material. Infinite scalability, absolute decentralization, perfect authentication. Now, if you've been in the crypto space for more than like 5 minutes, you know that getting all 3 of those at once is the holy grail. It's the thing everyone says is literally impossible. So the one question that's going to drive this whole explainer is, how on earth do they claim they've done it? So to really wrap our heads around ENTIFY's new approach, we've got to take a quick step back. We need to understand the huge fundamental problem that every single major blockchain, I'm talking Bitcoin, Ethereum, all of them, runs smack into. It's a challenge that's baked right into their DNA. It's called the blockchain trilemma, and the best way to think of it is like this. You've got 3 things you desperately want: decentralization, security, and scalability. But you can only ever have 2 of them at the same time. So you can be super secure and decentralized, like Bitcoin, but that makes you slow and not very scalable. Or you can be scalable and secure, but then you usually have to sacrifice some decentralization. You get to pick 2. You can't have all 3. That's been the rule, well, until now, or so they claim. And this is where ENTIFY crashes onto the scene. They don't just try to solve the trilemma, they claim to completely shatter it by changing the most fundamental thing: where and how a blockchain even operates. You know, they're not just trying to build a better car, they're proposing a whole new type of road. This slide really lays it all out, side by side. On the left, you've got what we all know, traditional blockchains. They live on the internet, they use a mind-boggling amount of energy for proof, they've got transaction fees, and they eventually hit a ceiling because of server limits. Now, look at what ENTIFY claims. They say they flipped every single one of those things on its head. It lives on a private radio network. It's proofless. It has 0 fees. And maybe the wildest claim of all, the network gets stronger and faster the more people join it. Okay, I know what you're thinking. That all sounds absolutely incredible. But it also sounds a little bit like magic, right? So how does it actually work? Well, according to them, the answer isn't just in clever software. It's a combination of hardware, software, and get this, the laws of physics.
Okay, so here's their secret sauce, and it really comes down to 2 key pieces of technology. First, there's the Ethereum tag. The easiest way to think about this is as a physical piece of hardware, like an unhackable digital fingerprint for a real person or a real object. And the most important part? It works completely offline. Second, you've got the Ionic radio mesh. This is a whole separate communication network, totally independent of the internet. Imagine a massive, super secure walkie-talkie system where every single user's device helps make the network bigger and stronger. And that brings us to the absolute biggest question of all. Blockchains use things like proof of work to create trust, to prove that a transaction is valid. So if ENTIFY gets rid of proof, how can you possibly have any trust in the network? Where does it come from? And this is the giant conceptual leap they make. Instead of creating trust with a ton of computation after a transaction has already happened, they claim they establish trust based on physical reality before a transaction even begins. So here's how those 2 pieces of tech work together to create trust. The radio mesh can prove the actual physical location of a device. At the same time, that offline hardware tag can prove that a real, living human is using that device at that exact moment. So you combine a verified person with a verified location, and there's your trust. You don't need to solve a giant math problem. The proof isn't in the code, it's in the real world.
So, what do you actually do with all this tech? Well, that brings us to the first major application. If you can use cryptography to prove a real person is real, what else can you prove? The answer is pretty much any object in the physical world.
And this is the N tag. It's that same Ethereum hardware we just talked about, but now it's in the form of a tiny NFC chip. Now, they use some heavy-duty language like post-quantum evolving keys, which is really just a fancy way of saying it's designed to be secure against hackers, even with supercomputers that haven't been invented yet. Its main job is simple: create a totally unbreakable link between a physical item and its digital twin, the NFT. But before you can start authenticating luxury watches or car titles, you have to authenticate the most important thing first: the user. You. So the very first use for this ENTI tag is the ENTI card, which is just the tag in a credit card form. Its only job is to prove that you are you and that you are alive. And the process is designed to be incredibly simple and physical.
You just tap your card to your device. Because the card is offline, it can't be remotely hacked. It just does its one job. It verifies you're a real person making the transaction right then and there. And only after that physical proof is established does the transaction get broadcast on the network. This quote just perfectly sums up the end goal here. When the link between the physical and the digital is this secure, the digital version, the NFT, and the physical item basically become the same thing. Proving you own one is the same as proving you own the other. The line between the two worlds just starts to disappear. So when we pull back and look at the big picture, you start to see that this isn't really about a new kind of cryptocurrency. The ultimate vision for ENTIFY is so much more ambitious. It's about building an entirely new foundation for our digital lives.
And to really get just how ambitious it is, it helps to look at everything ENTIFY says it is not. They say it's not just another blockchain project. It's not a phone company. It's not another crypto wallet or social identity system or banking app. They're not trying to compete with any of those things. No, the vision is for it to be all of those things, all integrated into one single system.
And that brings us to this new category that they say they've invented, a self-sovereign operating system. Just think about that for a second. It's an infrastructure that unifies your identity, your communications, your money, and your property all into one decentralized system that you, and only you, are actually in control of.
So what are we supposed to make of all this? Is ENTIFY the actual blueprint for a new, trusted internet? One that's free from all the problems we have today? Or is it just an incredibly bold, beautiful vision of a future that hasn't quite been built yet? Well, according to the source material, the pieces are all there. And maybe the real takeaway is this. Some people aren't just trying to fix the old system anymore. They're trying to build an entirely new one from the ground up.